Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Press Play. I'm your host, JJ48, and tonight we are back in the Stanley Parable. I'm Last week we found a few of the endings on our own. We found the following all of the instructions ending where Stanley escaped the office building. We took a look at what happens if we completely ignore all the instructions of the narrator and things just kind of go off the rails. We examined a little bit about sequels and uh, extra content and the way that can kind of be a bit misleading and go wrong itself, and uh, several other several other endings, all kind of pointing towards this sort of complex relationship between the people making a game and the story they're trying to tell, and a player having choice and being able to choose what they want to do within a game. So tonight we're going to continue looking at some more endings. I've actually pulled up a list of all the various endings and even some Easter eggs and things. So hopefully we'll get to see as much of those as we can, and we'll take it from there. And I did notice when I was booting it up, I got in. It asked me to input the time again, and then after I put it in, this text popped up. So I'm going to see what they have to say. So before we get started, can I just say something? Thank you for actually setting the clock both times you've booted up the game. A lot of people don't take that step seriously. They just leave the clock set at 12 and call it a day. But you're actually taking the time to set the clock, and I appreciate that. That's how I know that you care about this experience. You're paying attention. I don't even have any way of knowing if the times you're setting are correct. Tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Since you've been so cooperative, next time you boot up the game and see this screen, just set the clock to your favorite time. Go ahead, pick whatever time you want, even if it's not the correct time. You've earned it. Alright, I'll let you get back to the video game now. Yeah, a bit more kind of meta humor there. Of course, it's the Stanley Parable 2 because we found the sequel ending last time, and so now we're calling it 2 to try to make it seem more epic and better than just calling it the Stanley Parable Deluxe. So, okay. So when it asked me to input the time again, I was wondering if maybe
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Hmm.
Stanley worked for
There's
a
the
company in a
balloons.
big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a...
Okay. I think we've seen intro enough. We're gonna... Hey, we got an achievement for quitting the game and starting it again.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
So yeah, when it asked me to input the time again, I was concerned that maybe it would just like reset everything, like maybe there was no saving of what we had done before. But yeah, we definitely still have all the sequel features. Look at all these balloons everywhere. The get well someday. Whoever that's addressed toward. Have our bucket here. Was another feature of the sequel.
Stanley felt the bucket calling to him, begging him to pick it up. Why was he not doing it?
Should we pick up the bucket? Okay.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
Alright, now we have a bucket. That's going to actually be a different ending than the one I anticipated, but That's fine.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
See what happens if we go for the ending, but just now we're carrying a bucket.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers.
I like that we're making the bucket an actual character now.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy. It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here.
Can we leave it here?
It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh, no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends?
Hey.
That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner? Well,
Yeah,
I've never...
fair enough.
Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings
together
for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it.
We picked up the bucket when we saw the preview of the sequel, and now we have the bucket here in the sequel, so...
Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled. No more debate, no more discussion. Take a hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things.
Yeah, this is Stanley's bucket.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Executive bathroom. Hey, we have collectibles.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Absolutely, we'll savor each time we find a collectible. Okay, can't get in there. Now I'm curious where the rest of them are going to be.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire, if not for the soothing presence of the bucket.
Oh, good.
Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Yeah, the bucket really adds a lot to the narrative, doesn't it?
Another miniature Stanley figurine. There really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? Or what about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Okay.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
I actually tempted to just redo the original ending just to see if it changes with the bucket.
Straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Okay, mind control facility. Yep, been here.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well?
Oh no.
Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
Okay, we're going to pause here for a moment. Look around a bit. It seems odd that you need all these monitors and then lights shining up in front of them like that. You'd think that would put a bit of glare on them. And is this like a bottomless pit, or is there just... It looks like it's pretty deep, however far down it goes. Here we go. After a while, the doors or the gates open up. And let's see what happens if we turn the lights off again. Secrets mode engaged. Secrets room 2014. Never give up on your dreams. Don't touch the secrets. Never go secret. Super secret bros. Secrets. These aren't even on the screen. These are in front of the screen. Secrets. Don't touch the secrets. Disco Secrets. Faithfully ported secrets. 2022.
No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control. Never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For
Yeah.
he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world.
Yeah, you with
They
me, Bucket?
high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
All right, let's do it, Bucket.
When at last they came to the source of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for. Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support. What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed?
Oh no.
An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
Oh no!
Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No, no, no. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Oh. Oh, okay. So if we take the bucket and go for the good ending, we can't leave, but at least we get to spend our time with the bucket.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Okay, this time... Figurine Finders Committee meeting today in the meeting room. This time we're not going to take the bucket with us. Oh, we don't have a little barrier here. Oh, the first time we came through, there was a little barrier here to make sure that we walked past the bucket. And now it's definitely labeled that it's ours. How cute. Ah, here we go. Let's see if those computers do anything.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Okay. Oh, now there's... looking into how to find collectibles. Maybe we are the collectibles. To my concern, I managed to pick up sounds unusual to our regular office ambience or local audio sources. What we know, small floating objects have appeared across the office. I can tell you spotted one. What makes it float in the air? Who took these pictures of them? There will be a reward for finding them. So, picked up sounds using an array of cardioid microphones, also known as directional mic, a microphone which picks up sound from a particular area. Analysis of The recordings allowed me to triangulate the source of the strange noise. Data shows that in all likelihood it's coming from a dark area behind a very warm place. I also picked up what looks to be reverberance off a porcelain surface. Anyone have any leads on this? Okay, where are they? Please do not leave the office before reporting back on any new findings. Teamwork and communication are of great importance during the unprecedented time of investigation. Help, I'm a post-it. Okay. Trust the completionist instinct. Saw one in cargo room. Can we contracts for them? Can we sell them? Why do they kind of look like 427? Why floating? 427 is Stanley, so people have picked up on the fact that they kind of look like Stanley. Warehouse access plan. Produce one plank to allow ease of access past fence. Construct bridge to allow collection of shiny float. Retrieve Chris's remains from warehouse floor. Construct new structurally sound bridge. Okay. I hope someone manages to inform Chris's family at some point. Places to search. Inside of a sequel exhibit, a large room, lots of boxes. Stairs, something to do with stairs. Somewhere both red and blue. Nearby a fireplace. Private but smelly place for an important person. Okay, so inside of a sequel exhibit was the first one we found when they were announced. Nearby a fireplace was the one inside the secret passage once we went in. And a private but smelly place is the executive bathroom. So, okay, so this should help us narrow down. So, large room, lots of boxes is probably the warehouse they mentioned. Something to do with stairs. Maybe we'll try checking the stairwell. And someplace both red and blue. There must be a point to this. Is this some kind of game? Gotta collect them all. 5 there be, just take it from me. There will be cleaning of this wall required. Yeah, why are people writing on the walls itself? Why not? We have all these whiteboards. Why are people... Follow clues provided by employee 416. We can do it. Thank you and good luck. Seems like people are going kind of crazy with all the...
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Aha!
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense
Kind of like
of happiness
Figlies.
that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Okay. So I don't want to go through there, although that does look both red and blue, but let's get back to the ending we're trying to get at the moment. Because if we go through there, I think that kind of locks us into the kind of the endless corridors. Many figurines in here. Are you both red and blue? No. Okay.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
5.
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Making sure that even if you try to speed through this, you're going to still end up taking the same amount of time, probably, or maybe even longer.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Okay. This time we're having to go it alone, though. We don't have the bucket to help us.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Okay.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Okay.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant
Why is
nothing.
528 doesn't show a camera? It shows like an error screen or something. Unfortunately, we can't zoom in. Kind of curious what sorts of Easter eggs and things might be on some of these screens if we could actually see them better.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Somewhat ironic considering we've already established Stanley
But here was the proof.
is the character,
the heart of the operation.
and we're the player.
Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life.
Okay, so now
For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
what happens if we turn them on?
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex.
Seems a little
Well, until
over the top.
detonation, then, let's say 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it,
No.
Stanley? It's your time to shine. You
Can't
are
turn
the
it off.
star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone.
Fail safe.
Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost
Wait,
hate
what?
to see it go.
Are we at like
But I'm
30
sure
seconds
whatever
before?
I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so
4.
much.
Do we know where 4 is?
You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are
thank you.
precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did
Pretty
you
much.
just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley?
Any
That
key to
this
some
video
power
game can
surge?
be beaten? One solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first. So
Goodbye, employee 427. Oh no.
take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully?
15
Not a
seconds.
choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say
3, 2,
happily
1.
ever after.
Okay. So, if we actually, presumably, I think what it was supposed to be with Stanley doing is, turning on the machine would be like if we were trying to actually take control of the machine, which, in some games, going for like an evil ending of, instead of just escaping, we're going to actually take control and become the masters ourselves, and the narrator just deciding, nope, that's not going to happen. So, all right, so we got that one. I think we already. Okay, we did that one. Okay. So let's try this one.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Missed the memo about all the Stanlerines or whatever. Okay. Let's...
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors,
Keep
he entered the
going
door
here.
on his left.
We have mysterious music playing as we come in here. Beware the false prophet. Sounds like people went into some kind of a collecting cult
Coming
here.
to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Okay, I think we all...
Okay, so now... Narrator doesn't have a response to that? Did we lose the narrator? Did the narrator enter the room and we didn't? Narrator got separated from us? You are now leaving. Escape pod bay, floor 760. We're not going to have to walk up or down like 700 flights of stairs, are we? I think it said it was 760, so it should just be a couple more. Yeah, I think we did. I think we lost the narrator. He went inside to advance the story, but we walked out just before the door would normally close behind us, and then so now he's trapped on the one side of the door and we're over here. Okay, escape pod launch bay. I'm actually having to look at the Twitch stream because it's a little bit lighter on there than it is on my computer. Okay. Oh. Okay, I guess we just got to the escape pod and got out. Which I guess makes a certain amount of sense. If we're separated from the narrator, then of course the narrator can't narrate what happens to us after that. So. Okay. Okay, apparently one of the signs we missed, we passed, had fine print that said that both Stanley and the narrator must be present to activate the escape pod. So that's why the game just restarts instead. Okay. Okay, let's...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Surname access. Again, I don't see the, we're able to hit two computers with the code, but...
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
I want to see something with the broom closet. Oh yeah, somebody scratched off the stairs, something to do with stairs. Oh, we did need to check the basement again to see if that's where the next thing was.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Now we're just going to hang out here for a little bit.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet.
Yeah,
No
that's what you
reason to
think.
still be here.
That's what you think. We're gonna find out the secret of the broom closet
It was
here.
baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet?
Yeah.
Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me
Wanna see
some
what-
explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
I want to see what's going to happen. Who's adjusting things in
You
the
do
conference
realize
room?
There's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
It is kind of odd to think about what's going on in the
Maybe
conference
to you
room.
this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
Probably.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He
Hey,
probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
you just trying to get a rise out of me, so I'd rush out of the broom
Well, I've
closet or
come to a
something?
very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose.
It's reasonable.
Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming.
Important
so
things
that
to
the
know.
irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway. Ah, second player, it's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you.
Although I just realized I'm wearing headphones, so if I had slumped dead at my computer, and even if there was anybody nearby, no one would be able to hear the narrator calling out for them.
You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
We're gonna see if we can. There's collectibles here.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a
this
single moment for no
isn't
reason
the
at
way.
all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that
And just reset here because we've already seen that ending. I just went down there to see if the one of the collectibles was there. So let's see. What's our next ending? Okay, we've gotten that one. Okay, then there was the apartment ending with the creepy mannequin. We got that. It was the one where we unplugged the phone. Okay. All right, let me see if I can find this. Find this one. All right, I've been doing a lot of left door stuff.
Wonderful. Stanley was alone. Finally. This is great, he thought to himself. This is what I've wanted all along. I got what I wanted.
Why do we want to be alone? I mean, not that I'm doubting that we want to be alone. I'm just that seems a little different.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Is this... No, this is just blue.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Is that... That's not red and blue.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
There's the collectible. Can we... Aha. Ooh, there's a vent there. This does not seem structurally sound.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler Anlarines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it.
Yay!
We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler Anlarines. None of us can.
Right. If I recall correctly, I think we already jumped down before, kind of take control of things. So let's see what happens if we go through the vent. Oh.
Stanley had now gotten himself so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path.
Bunch of audio cassettes.
So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it's...
You didn't think I was actually just a recording, did you? What
Yeah.
a silly and trite explanation that would be. All the back and forth between you and me, all the absurd adventures we've been through, and it all turns out I'm just a tape recording? It was all just in Stanley's head. I bet that's the kind of twist you think is revelatory. I bet each and every time you watch a movie where it turns out all to be in the main character's imagination, you must absolutely bolt off the couch in pure shock at the phenomenal and intricate storytelling. It must be so simple to be you. Life being an unending waterfall of surprises and delights. How much more exciting you must find the world than the rest of us do. Now I've become sad. Look what you've done to me. This is all your fault.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Okay, let's see.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow.
Yep.
Yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Curious if the last
Stanley was
collectibles
so
place
bad
we've
at
seen
following
before,
directions, it's
or...
incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about.
What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance.
Okay. How are you going to prove it?
Now listen
Hey,
carefully, this is
blue and
important.
red.
Stanley walked through the red door. And there it is, the last Stiggly Wiggly. Savor this moment, Stanley. This is a real accomplishment.
Right.
This is doing something just for the sake of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Don't even get an achievement in Steam for that. Wait, which door did you say? The red door? I think he said the red door.
Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you. What do we want? What are we looking for?
What is
Here.
this?
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy.
It's kind of nice, isn't it? A little bright, though. Perhaps if we move on.
No, wait. Where are you going?
Ooh.
Right. Where were we?
added some more. So we have the blue above. We've got all these colors down here. There is no way back. It's just this one door going on. Anything changing? No. Okay.
Oh no! Stay away from those stairs. If you hurt yourself, if you die, the game will reset. We'll lose all of this.
Okay, what happens if I... What's my alternative?
Good, good. We can't be too safe. Promise me you won't go back there. Just stay here.
Now it's green.
No! What do we talk about? You're risking everything we achieved here.
Wonder the additional colors trying to entice us to stay anytime we leave. Okay, I want to see what these stairs are all about.
You heard me before, didn't you? You will die. What about this isn't getting through to you?
Nah, it's fine.
Please, no, Stanley, let me stay here. Don't take this from me. Please, Stanley, think about what you're doing. No! Oh, thank God you lived. You had me worried there for a moment. Now, can we please get back to the other room?
Ooh,
There.
it's all pinks
See?
and reds now.
This is what you want. This is where we can both be happy. We really can. If we stop moving, we just have to stop moving.
We just have to stop making any choices at all. Which, I guess you choose to stop making choices, but then that would be your final choice.
Stanley, go back. There's nothing good that can come from this.
Nah, it's still just all pink and reds.
No. No, no. What do you do? Do you just not believe me? What can I say to convince you?
We already jumped off once and it was fine. Look, we'll do it again.
Stanley,
That's it.
let's go back to the other room. Can you do that for me? Yes. Perhaps you can. Perhaps you finally see what I'm talking about.
We're back to... I wonder, is it a set pattern each time we return? That it, like, keeps adding stuff? Or is it kind of random each time? Okay, we have to do this, I think, a couple more times in order to actually get the ending.
My God, is this really how much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from this platform over and over to be rid of it?
What
You were literally
game?
willing to kill yourself to keep me from being happy. Am I reading the situation correctly?
You have us just standing in a room looking at lights.
Or maybe you're just getting a kick out of it. I don't know anymore. I just wanted us to get along. But I guess that was too much to ask. It looks like you wanted to make a choice after all. Well, this one is yours.
Is that a sign that this is the final time? We seem to be moving slower each time.
Is it over? It's going to restart, isn't it? I'm going back.
Okay, Okay. All right.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to
Uh,
put a pause on
what?
things. It's those figurines. Those figglers. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life? Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time.
Okay. This wasn't what I was intending, but I guess that's what we get for collecting the figurines. All right, back to the memory zone. Now remembering when Stanley found the collectibles. Okay. There's the awards. Is it downstairs, maybe?
Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
7 of... Okay. We're gonna get to double our collectibles.
And here was a second Stanley. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around in the boss's bathroom. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest. Back then, I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways.
We're actually going to go in the proper order? Okay.
Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini stand? Can you remember?
What happens if we go the wrong way? Because the third one we found in the fireplace, but let's go this way instead.
No. Under the stairs was the 4th place you found a Stanley, not the 3rd. Well, I guess perhaps I shouldn't be surprised. Memories like these are so precious and so cherished that they all just sort of blend together, don't they? You know what? If under the stairs feels like the 3rd place you found a collectible, then who am I to go making judgments?
Okay. How do we get out of here? Ah, there we go.
Let's see. What came next? Oh yes, we found a Figley in this pink room. Oh, well, I can't actually say I remember being in this room, but
yeah, I
it's
don't
here in
remember
the
this.
memory zone, so it must have happened.
I don't recall this place. I don't think we found a figurine in here.
This was the 5th mini-stand, and this one was really something special. It was in the warehouse. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion. Enjoy.
Okay, we have some nice Windows Movie Maker style edits here. What's that back there? Oh, it's a Stanley figurine. Figurable. It's mini stand number 5. Review from the mini stand. You found it near the cargo lift. Thanks for watching. By the narrator, edited by the narrator, music by the narrator, produced by the narrator, best boy the narrator, starring Stanley. Copyright the narrator.
Takes you back, doesn't it? I spent a lot of time making that video, but it was 8 minutes I wouldn't have spent on anything else.
Kind of tempted to jump off here just to see what happens if we jump off in the memory. Oh, okay, we can't actually jump off. Okay, that makes sense. I don't want to make this like I don't want to add like too many endings within the memory. And then there was this door.
And then, Stanley, then we came to the last collectible, the final figurine, right here by the red and blue doors. This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figley and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other. Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly like.
Of course. Oh, both doors lead to the same place. All right. You are in the present.
And then there was no more. Because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone. No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
Okay.
Okay, yes, the room with the red and blue doors. I remember
Get to collect them all again.
I must say, of all the figurines we looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone, this one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going. I want more.
Okay, narrator, yeah, let's make this all about you. Who cares what we, the players, want?
And here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched? Yes, I love that video.
This is the one that we didn't actually remember collecting.
Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room.
Of course, it's kind of taking the place of the one behind the fireplace in the boss's
really
office.
A treat to hunt down. You know,
So
if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have muted the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation. Next one.
Okay, what happens if we go this way? Okay, we can't go this way. It's blocked off. We'll never find out what would have happened if we had gone that way first.
This was our second Figley. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose to leave it? Keep going. This is it. The very first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figurines. Oh, I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else is there? What came before this?
Oh yeah, this was when we entered here. This is the sequel area, but it seems a little different.
Look, it's the terrible new content that we were originally sold on. I remember hating it back then. But time does put a rosy filter on everything. In fact, I dare say I'm actually quite fond of it now. Oh, yes, the two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one.
And back to our office.
And before everything else, there was your office. Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember. Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with profound thoughtfulness. And then somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy, and I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions. He would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I needed to imagine I had companionship. And Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion, even if he was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory?
I'm gonna have to collect everything again.
Just once, and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good. I did enjoy telling his story so very much. Okay, here we go. This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Okay.
How wonderful. Stanley was alone. Finally. This is great, he thought to himself. This is what I've wanted all along. I got what I wanted. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
We want to go back to the room with the red and blue doors, and this time we want to not follow the narrator.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about.
What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you?
Well, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Let's take the blue door.
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
Oh, here's a blue door.
All right, fine. Go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see?
Oh.
There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you?
Absolutely
I think
it was.
I put a lot of time into that, because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing, because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles?
That'd be
Skill
cool.
trees?
Yeah.
Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what, let me take a stab in the dark at a new design, and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
Okay. I couldn't have bothered with some textures on here.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here. Oh, of course. A 3.
Yeah,
Really?
it's
Maybe
decent.
next time we can get you to form an actual opinion, you know? Any level of critical thinking or engagement with your surroundings? Does that sound good? Think we can do that? Yes?
Okay, fine. 1.
Wonderful. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look. Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please.
Good old Neil, Skid, Joe Nacho. Yeah. Did you know that 21.3% of players skipped the intro sequence? Only the worst 3% of players chose the blue door. Oh, I'm 9,328 out of 9,328. Top 10,000. Nice. All right. Let's go back through this door. Huh? Seems like collision's not enabled properly. Ceiling light, which makes me wonder if that's intentional. But I think that we would get through at some point. Okay, I wonder if this might actually be busted. We might need to reset. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get back here. There's supposed to be more beyond that.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it.
There's never the
Oh,
end.
won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing? No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Except for the fact that they keep updates on the... Oh, now we kind of need to go back
Stanley
to the...
came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
We need to see if there's an update in here on the figurines.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Okay. Trying to see what do people want, if they had anything about figurines. No, it seems like they're done talking about figurines and they're just talking about business stuff. Okay. Well, we need to... Let's go back.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Oh, this is different.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Standing now in this incredible room, Stanley for the first time understood true happiness. Then the feeling went away, and he felt sad again. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here.
Whenever something
I'm not sure,
changes, I'm
Stanley,
a little
really,
nervous that
I realize that investing your trust in someone else can
we're
be
missing
difficult,
something.
but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you
we just-
all this. What? Really?
Cool, we can
I
make
was
it
in
from
the
there.
middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side.
Last
Give me a
time
chance. Now listen carefully.
encountered a
This is
game-breaking
important.
bug, so
Stanley walked through the red door. Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red... All right, fine, go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you.
okay.
You see?
Back
There's
here.
nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what, let me take a stab in the dark at a new design and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
Okay, so we have this.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here.
It's a broken, buggy mess.
One? I mean, I can understand if you had reservations, you saw ways the game could be improved to more fully express itself mechanically and artistically, but a one? That's not even helpful. What am I supposed to do with that? But I guess it isn't my place to judge. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
Okay, so we have our world leaderboard. Okay, good. We have
Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again,
Absolutely
honest
did.
answers, please. Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been working on, and now would be a lovely opportunity to give it some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up. In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail. It's a very meaningful game, all about the desperation and tedium of endlessly confronting the demands of family life. I think the art world will really take notice. But of course, the message of the game only becomes clear once you've been playing it for about 4 hours. So why don't you give it 4 hours of play to make sure it's effective? Be sure to keep notes on your experience.
Wow, that would be a very pleasant 4 hours, but let's see what happens if we lose the game.
You heartless bastard. Did you do it because you hate babies or purely to spite me? Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out, I'm done. It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play someone else's game, just to ease the pain? Let's see. What do we have here? Yes, this seems like it'll work. Let's give it a shot. Aha! Fascinating. What do you think this game is about, Stanley? What's our backstory? What is our motivation? Well, it seems obvious to me that you are meant to play as a creepy man spying on innocent civilians below you from up high in your creep tower, perhaps for some sort of twisted erotic purpose. Yes,
Alaska,
that must be
floor
it.
of the
What a
Shoshone.
fascinating venture into the experience of total mental depravity. So far, I love everything about this game, Stanley. And it seems there's even more. Come, let's venture outward and see what else is out there.
From what I can tell, this is basically a game of being in a fire watchtower, which I've never heard of this game, never played it, but narrator seems to have some wrong ideas about what this game is.
Let me see. No, it can't be. It is. It's an open world game. Good God, quickly
Jonesy
block
Lake.
it off.
Oh, I want to go to Jonesy Lake.
Thank goodness, Stanley. What a close call. You nearly wandered off into that thing. That big, open, just wandering around. No right or wrong directions. No path to follow. You can just go in any... Oh, thank heavens we avoided it. We're out of the woods now, Stanley. Okay,
We're actually
I'm going to
still
get us
in the
out of
woods.
here. Let's find another game. Preferably something with walls. Something with nice, big, insurmountable walls.
Okay.
Okay, I think this will be just the thing. Wonderful. See, this is exactly what I
Rocket
had
League?
in mind. Just a nice big box for you to run around in. There isn't any possibility that you could get lost here. Now this is game design. Stanley, if you manage to get lost in this game, I will be phenomenally impressed.
This is game design for running around in cars pushing
Okay, so what exactly
a large
do
ball,
we do here? Let's see.
not just
There are
walking
lots
slowly
of cars here in
around.
the back, but obviously there's no racetrack. Okay, I'm seeing that there's a ball of some kind back here. Is this game sports ball? Stanley, I think it's sports ball. Oh, what fun. We shall run the bases and do a touchdown together? Yes, I think surely we must. Okay, Stanley, here's the ball. Have fun.
Okay. I guess we'll be on blue team, try to knock this towards orange goal. I think we lost the ball.
Hold on. What are you doing? Stanley, don't do that. I can't follow you there. I can't help you. How will you write a story without me? You can't do it. You know that. Stanley, come back.
Work in progress. Various iterations, beta, alpha. Okay. Whoop. I thought that was just a hallway, but this is a hallway. Oh, this looks like this might have been an early version of the office. Did we saw earlier versions of the office in the museum ending. Did any of them look like this? Where are we going? Oh, there's more light down there. That's got to be a good sign. Yep, here's something. Oh, okay, this is 427. This is Stanley's office in this version. A lot more screens.
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the leading man in his own story, well, perhaps he's gotten it, down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back. The end will be here soon. Very soon. I can wait.
There we escaped the narrator completely, but just we're wandering test levels. The next ending actually requires us to play the baby saving game for 4 hours, which I don't really feel inclined to do, and we don't have time for anyway. So I think what we might do is, I'm sure somebody has played that for 4 hours before. Maybe for next week we'll look up a video of somebody playing that. Not watch the whole thing, but just to watch through some of it. So.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
Can't close the door this time. Things look different.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
This isn't where I want to go, though.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Oh no, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Is something going to change this time, or is it just playing it straight from here?
Here's the door. Just go.
Okay, may as well just go on out and get the good ending if this doesn't take us somewhere new. I think the good ending will probably be the shortest.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Probably.
No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Interestingly...
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machine...
Okay. So interesting, that didn't seem to give off any kind of a twist or anything. But the start was different, so that we, like,
Blackness.
Immediately...
And a rising chill of uncertainty.
Had to go through the doors. We couldn't,
Was it over?
couldn't do anything before the doors.
Yes.
Unless there was something else we were supposed to do.
He had won.
And
He
we
had
missed it.
defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Okay, once it opens...
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
You're okay with Stanley just going off on his own into the wide world when it's the end of the story and you don't have to narrate anymore, I guess. I need to see what my controls are. Oh, okay. Can crouch, okay, that's good.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Is what I'm supposed to... No, maybe it's... Okay.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in?
Nope, there's the window. Just
Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
if this is all that there is, then yes.
Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want, like right now. You could have done it just then. Now would also be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on where you are literally unable to act on your own desires to restart the game. So, just to push the envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain. There once was a man named Stanley.
Okay, no, we're gonna start the game. Restart the game. Okay, so that seems to be referring to we do see in a lot of games things that seem like they're out of bounds or like you're breaking the game, but then when you get there, the developers did put something to indicate that they did anticipate players getting there, which is always kind of an interesting experience.
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it. If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
Okay, well, thanks. Now I'm paranoid. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I know what we're doing here. Okay, so in order to get this ending, we're gonna have to reset until we can. We want to get to the computer thing, so we need to reset until that happens. Until it comes back.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing.
There's the balloon sitting in the chair. Okay, now we need to do this until we...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Maybe it's there. Maybe it still remembers that we already did the... We already hit those two. Okay, so let's try checking the third one and see if it's there.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Okay.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Narrator does not want us entering the broom closet again.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay. Aha, it is. Okay. What? No, that's not what I want.
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it. If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
Okay. Looks like maybe that actually triggered. Good. All right, we got the code. Welcome, Stanley, to heaven. Which apparently consists of a bunch of buttons to push. And they unpress after a while. Yeah. And that is literally all there is here, so... What to make of that? So Stanley, as a game character, his idea of heaven is just pushing buttons. Granted, his job, which he seemed to enjoy so much, was just pushing buttons. Except here, he's not told which buttons to press. He gets to press any ones he wants. So, come on, let's... Okay, let's see. The next one requires we do something before we actually open up the game, so we'll skip that one for now. Okay. So we want to restart until we get to the blue. Starting office. One that has a different layout. Do I need to head out before resetting? Is it random? Oh, we can just immediately go back to the other ending if we want.
How long was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time from now on. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? All of his co-workers were...
Okay. Here we go. All right.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Welcome to the whiteboard ending. Okay, well, that's not an actual ending, it's just more of a joke, but... Oh. Oh, and we enable that every time we click. It makes a dog noise instead of the clicking noise. Okay. Alright, what can we... Okay, we already discovered the new content. We discovered the sequel. Hmm. All right.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open...
Okay, I need to see... Is it possible to get to the new
All of his
content
co-workers
area
were...
again?
Wait, no. This isn't the right office, is it? Is this Stanley's office?
Dog mode isn't enabled anymore. Okay, maybe we need to try some other stuff before we can get... We need to get back to the new content ending. But it doesn't seem to be available at the moment. So, okay, what else can we do? Okay, let's grab the bucket.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
All right.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
We've got our old buddy the bucket back.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the... But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the mind control facility.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
So we're going to be doing a lot of the same endings, just now with the bucket.
Lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens.
And see how it differs.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
All right, bucket, let's do this.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Ah, there, bucket.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do?
Is the
What
bucket the
kinds
one
of
that was
things
fired?
does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control.
Pirate?
Never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
Yeah, but at least I can trust the bucket.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that
bucket
this
can help us take
machinery
control.
would never... But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls.
Oh,
Stanley
bucket, what did you do?
gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the
No,
bucket
bucket.
have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again.
Got some flamingos.
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best.
Spending the rest of my life just
Was happy.
looking at silly birds with a bucket. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I think I understand what we're doing here.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Okay. Got our bucket again.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Bucket's not really doing much walking, I have to say.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Okay. What happens if we go back up?
Wait, Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
Bucket just doesn't understand. I kind of get the feeling the introduction of the bucket and then all these ridiculous endings with the bucket and the narrator focusing on the bucket and everything. Wonder if they're kind of making a joke about in games when the developers will introduce a character or a companion or somebody who they clearly care a lot more about than you do.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button.
They
He took
kind
the
of
bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over and over and over. Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator. Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly. No, said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me. You and I have been through so much together, and I just want you to see what I see. Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
I'm kind of curious how anyone would even discover these endings without a guide. This one in particular does not seem very intuitive to get back on the lift after you go down.
Here we go, said Stanley.
With the bucket.
This time I'll really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears, and the whole time he looked to his bucket for a reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence. Crushed by a wave of dejection, Stanley returned to the elevator.
But maybe...
Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's? The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Maybe third time's the charm, since we're talking about the number 3. All right.
said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart. He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3 over and over. He would elaborate fully on what the
press
number
conference
3 meant to him and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand Stanley's work. For months, he advertised and
All
marketed
eyes on
his
Stanley.
press conference, building
Live on
excitement
stage.
around it, developing and rehearsing it until it couldn't be refined a single measure further.
The pyramids.
When the big day arrived, Stanley was
Guy went
as
to Mars.
prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
We're really marketing it to this one particular hallway, aren't we? Evening with World Peace, baby. The Stanley Parable, Stanley, tonight, live on stage. The man, the process? The myth, the legend, the parable, Stanley from the Stanley Parable. World's first sentient machine. Okay. To stage 3333333. See bucket. See what the number 3 means. See how important it is.
This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
Congratulations, Stanley. Remember where you came from. Your coworkers. Okay. 427. Then there's number 3, and this looks like a bunch of eyes staring at you from the wallpaper. Dude who came up with pizza. That would be interesting. Okay. Have the Lord meet and greet. Have doing great conversation with Alexander the Great. Okay.
There was no one here. Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak.
No one wants to
listen
hear about
to
the
him
letter
talk
3?
about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and
3.
over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure. And in that moment, Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Poor Stanley. Oh, this is a different hallway.
Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Okay.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
I got a fly in my room. Okay.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again
Guess that
stunned
means it's getting to be
discover
spring.
not an indication of any human life.
crushed by the weight of this, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Okay, so this time we're going to take the bucket to the museum.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death. The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
Don't worry, Bucket, I've heard this before. Okay, Bucket, I know it's kind of scary, but just hang with me.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death. It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
The bucket welcomes you to the grand exhibit. You are standing at the precipice of knowledge. Much like a bucket itself, the human mind is frequently empty within, a cavernous void. But through use of the exhibit in front of you, the mind becomes full and enriched and substantiated. Knowledge of the bucket and its history is the only true knowledge we really have. Will you take what you learn here out with you into the world? Will you accept with an open mind what may be challenging about the information in this exhibit? Will you change the lives of yourself and your loved ones as a result of this exhibit? Or will you turn a blind eye and continue to live as you were in ignorance and darkness? Like just the sole little office chair in the corner of the grand room here.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him?
Oh, we're not carrying the bucket
anymore.
anymore.
Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
25 buckets, a photograph of 25 buckets, the greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of the euphoria from exposure to this many buckets at once. That looks like that's more than 25. Then again, I guess buckets aren't known for being able to count. A bucket with two handles. This bucket is depicted as having two handles. Such a design has never been created in real life, having been deemed too dangerous and recklessly experimental. Every year, dozens are put to death just for attempting it. Oh dear. Inferno bucket. A replica of the Inferno bucket, which in the medieval era was so powerfully alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet in spite of it all, the simple fact remains, no one can control a bucket. Yeah, come on, Stanley, don't put your name on the bucket. What's up here? The stress bucket, an analogy. Worrying, negative forecasting, negative thinking, and lack of reassurance goes into the bucket. Vulnerability equals the size and strength of the bucket. And coping strategies equal the holes. Holes, rest and relaxation, doing something you enjoy, rest and relaxation. Okay, so all your vulnerability gets filled up with all these different sources of stress. Stress equals the level of water in the bucket. But then you can use coping strategies to release some of that stress and be able to empty the bucket. Presented without commentary. Okay. Buckets, including animals. Get the buckets. Oh, there's a leak in the ceiling. Hey, what if we put a bucket here? Now it collects in the bucket instead of being in a puddle. Hooray, bucket. Cave drawing. While we know that buckets predate the existence of mankind, we do not know by how long. This cave drawing depicts early man's discovery of the practical uses of the bucket, by which time the bucket had already likely been around for several millennia. Notice in these drawings how the bucket is allowing itself to be used, having judged humanity to be worthy of its treasures.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Should man, though? The hanging bucket. This piece symbolizes the necessary relationship between bucket and humanity. However clear our grasp of the bucket may be, there is yet more that is always out of reach. This distance, inevitably, is for our own good. Do we have to jump down the bottomless pit? Because it's the double handle bucket. So this was, I guess, in the middle of the room. Oh, we can walk to it and take it.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong.
Oh, good. Tell us.
Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine.
What?
Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
Okay, new narrator. I think you've kind of lost it a little bit. Okay.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others. So the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
No, I just like making my own decisions at times. It's not that I'm... Yeah.
Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd coming to a staircase. Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy.
How does this car even get in here?
Something occurred to Stanley.
Is this an entrance?
Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal,
Oh, no.
everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd.
What happened to the
Now
bucket?
he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley,
where's the bucket?
Stanley, it's me, the bucket.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley.
Oh, the coffee
Find
cup
me.
became a spilled bucket.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful.
I would imagine
Stanley
so.
doubled over in agony and blacked out. This is the
Stanley
story
ate
of
the
a
bucket?
woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't
Just
even
common
realize
sense.
he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Why did Mariella feel so vindicated by the Stanley's suffering?
Good morning. Thank you for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation. We are confirming your shipment of 1,327 cardboard boxes to your place of work. Can you verify that this is correct? Excellent. Your order will arrive shortly. Thank you again for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation.
Okay. It's weird. I guess somebody needs to answer the phone still.
The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket, off on another thrilling adventure together. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Okay.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where, coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
All right.
Stepping
Okay. So we've lost the narrator. So we'll go back down to our office. Interesting that all the doors unlock and open once the narrator's gone. What if the narrator's the one that is closing all the doors? Okay, so we'll head towards the escape pod again. But now we have the bucket with us. Maybe the bucket will let us use it. Before we couldn't because we didn't have the narrator with us. But the narrator is no bucket. So... Come on, bucket, let's get out of here. Let's escape. No music, no narrator. It's, feels kind of bleak. Okay, one more floor. Escape pod launch bay. And here's where it says, okay, entering the escape pod will initiate a relay. Once triggered, cannot be disabled or paused. Both the narrator and Stanley must be present in order for the escape pod intended. Okay, but let's see if having the bucket helps. Oh, where are we? There it is. Stanley, I'm a little concerned about your fixation on the bucket. But looks like maybe we'll let the bucket escape. Okay. Okay, make sure I... Oh, the bucket's gone. It really did escape. If we reset, does the bucket reappear?
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Instead of just these white panels. Replacement bucket. Okay, good.
And try not to lose this one too, you dolt.
We didn't lose the last one. We set it free.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
At least our replacement bucket is still Stanley's property.
Good Stanley, I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually.
We care about you, Stanley.
You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very
Room
much.
closet.
It's this bucket you're carrying
Baby.
around everywhere. The
Mannequin.
bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable.
Computer.
It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
Okay, let's follow the adventure line. But this time with a bucket.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
Yeah, I've heard this music before. The adventure line
Now,
music.
this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up.
Why can't we do that with the
Don't
bucket?
you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket.
Uh-oh.
That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer.
Insert
I think
bucket
it'll
to
make
destroy.
a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me, it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
No, looks like we're not putting the bucket in the machine.
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know
No.
what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The Broom Closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We
No.
can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and...
I'm not sure I've really cared much for the bucket destroyer as a character.
The Bucket Destroyer. My prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Farewell, bucket destroyer. But I don't think we'll be needing you. You're a bit harder to carry around with me than
A
the bucket
soft
is.
wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would...
Where are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be perfectly...
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him.
Bucket
telling
has
him that
really
the
taken over
employee
the
lounge was simply
narrative
place to
of
be.
the sequel.
And here
content.
it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Not going to the cargo lift bucket. That's a completely different ending. Hello, narrator.
Okay, this is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes.
Oh.
The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket.
There's a whole bucket museum for free.
It's my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
Well. Having a bucket can be pretty dangerous.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. A good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No, he didn't.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
The bucket seems to sound different every time it speaks.
Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Well, from here, it looks like the only way forward is down, since the lift won't be coming back, but that's okay. You've got a bucket. Did you know that buckets are routinely used as cushioning devices? It's true. You can fall on a bucket from literally any height and survive. Whoops. Looks like I was wrong. How clumsy of me.
Although, I kind of wonder if that, too, might be a reference. Earlier when we were playing the different games, and he was like, hey, you don't like my game? Fine, we'll go play some different games. I read that in one of the original versions, one of the games was Minecraft, instead of the Fire Tower game. And in Minecraft, if you have a bucket of water, water will literally cushion your fall and allow you to survive no matter what height you fall from it. And if you have a bucket of water, you can, with good timing, always just like dump it on the ground immediately before you land and survive. So I almost wonder if that's a if that was a deliberate reference. So, okay. Okay, so we still
All
have
of
a
his
few more
co-workers were gone.
endings
What
to go
could it
through with the
mean?
bucket.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Ah, the embrace of an old friend. A weathered companionship that stands the test of time.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chin. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Okay.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Now pick up the phone.
Said the bucket.
Pick up the phone and it will take us back home, where we can go about life together.
Yeah, this is a very demanding bucket this time.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
Bucket is kind of reminding me of the weighted companion cube from Portal. Of, hey, here's an inanimate object. Hello, Stanley, it's me, your bucket. Press U to take me to work with you.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head.
Press T to take me back home with you.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object?
Yeah, I've been
I
kind
want
of
to say
concerned as
something
well.
to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me. Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location. That's it. It doesn't do anything else.
Not so. It can carry things besides liquids. Like you could put sand or rocks in a bucket. Don't listen to the loud man. Press J for us to go back home.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal.
Press R to ignore anyone in your life except for me. Okay.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it.
You believe I'm real, don't you, Stanley? Press Y to go back home.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another.
Press G to relive the same day with me over and over.
Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
Press Y to go home to work to home to work to home.
Oh no. I'm having feelings for the bucket. Oh, no. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes. The bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome situation.
No, it's my
Stanley,
bucket.
give me the bucket. Give
No.
it to me. Give me the bucket, Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it or I'll...
Close your eyes. Go back to work, Stanley. Okay. Who's on the phone now?
Hello. This is a recorded message scheduled either by you or a person in your place of work. The purpose of this message is to warn you about the dangers of recorded messages. If at any time you believe you are listening to a recorded message, please terminate it immediately and cease all flow of information from the recorded message into your perceptual sphere. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.
So should I forget what the recorded message
The bucket
just
made
told me?
Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Okay, now let's
Now
turn
pick
off
up
the
the phone.
Whoa, hold on. Why did you unplug the phone? Were you trying to resist the bucket's orders? Stanley, I was joking. Obviously, the bucket isn't talking to you and telling you to do things. Buckets can't talk. It was a joke. Don't you get the joke? It's funny, Stanley. A talking bucket. Can't you see? Oh, goodness. I must have really bungled up the delivery if you actually took me seriously. Where did I mess up the joke? Should I have paused for longer or spoken quicker? Comedic timing is so difficult. I wish I were better at it. But there isn't exactly an instructional video on comedy that one can watch to fully... Oh, wait, yes, there is. It's sitting right here. Let's take a look.
A lot of cigarettes in here.
What is comedic timing? What is comedic timing? How does it work? How long should it last? How can it be used to effectively silence your political enemies? And more importantly,
questions.
can it be taught in its entirety within 90 seconds? Thankfully, the answer to all of these questions is yes. Let's dive deeper. If you've ever told a joke or made someone laugh, in all likelihood, you did it while standing 50 to 80 centimeters from them in a room of no more than 76 degrees Fahrenheit, with one of your arms raised straight upward at a 15-degree angle from your body. These are the optimal conditions for good comedic timing. To begin the joke,
None of that
start by
sounds like it
stating and
has
spelling
anything
your
to do
name.
with
Next, provide
timing.
a brief synopsis of the joke, including the specific times at which the recipient of the joke will laugh, and then spell out your name a second time. With these steps complete, it's time to begin the humor. Speak the entire joke in no more than 18 seconds and no less than 13 and a half, pausing only for bathroom breaks when necessary. When the joke has concluded, it is customary to inform your listener that the joke is over by declaring in your loudest possible voice, "I'm Dunny with the funny." Let's practice screaming, "I'm Dunny with the funny" now.
I'm Dunny with the funny.
Good. This saying is a perfect example of expectations management, which is the cornerstone of good comedy.
Obviously.
Finally, it's time to hand out surveys. Collecting hard data from your audience on how rapt they were throughout the joke is the only way to grow or learn as a comedian. An effective survey should be no less than 10 pages long and should include the same question reprinted several times, just to ensure the survey taker is actually paying attention and not simply filling in answers at random. And that's all there is. With these strategies at your disposal, you'll have audiences doubled over in laughter and even tripled over in laughter in no time at all. Just remember to let them stop laughing at some point, you gut-busting little scamp. After all, we're each of us needed on the front lines of the war to fight the 12-legged invader who threaten our very existence, and who very likely die in a hailstorm of bullets and mandibles. All of us must be prepared to give our lives to this noble cause, just as our children must do after us, and their children after them. Godspeed, and may Earth reign supreme.
I suddenly have a
Hey,
lot more
goodness,
questions
this
about
video
what
is a little
happens
outdated, isn't it?
happened
no
to
matter.
Stanley's
I think
coworkers.
the fundamentals of proper comedic timing are still as relevant today as they were back then. So with that in mind, I believe the only way forward is for us to return to the two doors and walk through all of this again, so I can try telling my story with more appropriate comedic delivery. Come along, let's head back. I can feel it. This time, I'm really going to nail the delivery. You'll be in stitches. A talking bucket, you'll say? How ridiculous. How absurd. What a hilarious concept. The king of comedy. That's what you'll call me. Thank goodness we have the instructional video. Otherwise, who knows where we'd be right now?
Oh, I know.
Well, I wouldn't be the king of comedy, that's for sure. The bucket spoke to Stanley.
The bucket spoke.
The bucket spoke. Oh, I'll figure it out on the fly. No need to overthink things.
Okay, we'll head back to the room with two doors. So you can try to deliver your joke a little better.
Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of two open doors, they entered the door on the left.
We need to go this way so the bucket can speak.
What? We're back at the phone already? No. What's going on? There were supposed to be several rooms leading up to this. There was supposed to be a build-up to this point, a dramatic display of remarkable comedic wit which culminates in this scene with the phone. But now the timing's completely off. The joke will never land. Well, not the way it was meant to. And it's all my fault. I must have forgotten that the phone room comes immediately after the two doors room. What an egregious mistake. I've made a fool of myself. I don't deserve the title of King of Comedy. I'm nothing. I'm not even the lowliest joke-telling whelp. I think I think I need to go back and rewatch that instructional video again. Yes, surely that will help me improve my... Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of 2 open doors, they entered the door on the left.
Okay, but let's just follow the left,
No,
the right
no,
one.
no, no, no. You were supposed to go through the door on the right, leading back to the phone. Did you not even look at the instructional video? I think this is all covered very clearly. There's no way I can make the comedic timing work now. It's done. The joke is completely done and over. It's all your fault, Stanley. I'm going to be ridiculed in the community of other joke writers. I'm going to be shamed at every one of our meetings from now on. All because you couldn't watch a simple video and take a hint. Are you proud of yourself for bringing me down, Stanley? Are you proud?
Stanley, you love the bucket so much it's like you... it's as though all of your other most prized possessions pale in comparison. Yes. Well, let me try that again, Stanley. I heard that you are pale with shame over how unabashedly in love with a bucket you are. No? Still not? Is it the delivery? Pale with shame. Pale with shame? Pale... What's another word to describe a bucket? Stanley, this bucket is so metal, I think I saw it playing guitar. No. We're getting away from making fun of Stanley's obsession with the bucket, which was the whole point of this. I'm no good at these jokes.
You need to work on your context a bit.
Videos. That's exactly what it is. That's what will make me the king of comedy again. More instructional videos. Let's see.
Okay. This actually seems like a pretty good place to stop. So, I got to see a lot of bucket endings tonight, and I think there's still a couple more for us to see, but we'll save those for next time. And yeah, so I feel like all the endings with the bucket are really it's interesting that the bucket was introduced as part of the sequel content, and then really kind of takes over the narrative once whenever we pick it up. The bucket kind of becomes the focus of the narrative, both for our character and for the narrator, and even for the player somewhat, since it covers a good 1/6 of the screen or so. So I can't help but feel there's kind of poking fun at when sequels sort of decide to focus on a popular new character instead of the characters that were around the first time. So, but what we'll do is I should be available next Monday and Friday, so we'll continue next Friday with hopefully getting the remaining endings of the Stanley Parable, and I'll see if I can look up a video for the one that would otherwise take 4 hours, since we don't really want to have to sit through that in a 3-hour stream. So we'll hopefully, based on what I'm seeing of the list of endings, unless some of them take a really long time, we should finish up the Stanley Parable next week. And I will try to also have our next game ready to go, so that depending on how long it takes, if it takes us a couple hours, we might just end the stream a bit early after doing a little bit of a doing a little bit of a post-game discussion. If it goes real quick, then we'll start our next game. So with that, thank you for joining me. Have a good week, and I will see you next time. Bye.